In part 1, we saw that Darwin expressed his idea about evolution by means of natural selection in terms of any being, leading to the quite general formulation of his 3 preconditions for evolution to occur. Following his lead, together with simplifying advice from Albert Einstein, we devised a simple 2-gene computer model that complies with the first 2 preconditions, heritable reproduction and variation. By releasing a single instance of the model into a dangerous habitat, we can generate a struggle for survival in scenarios that comply with all 3 of the preconditions. We can view these scenarios not in terms of any geographical perspective on the physical position of the evolving populations, but in terms of their location in a fitness landscape. An individual's genetic makeup determines the position on the XY plane, and its ability to survive and reproduce is determined by the altitude of the landscape terrain along the z-axis from that point. If z-coordinate determines, as required by the 3rd precondition, an individual's ability to survive and reproduce in the dangerous environment in which the population reproduces. We can terraform the terrain by scaling and positioning simple pyramid structures to represent resources available to individuals whose XY position is within the pyramid base rectangle. We can make the pyramids vary with time in a simple simulation of, for example, feast and famine seasonal variations on Earth. We start with a flat landscape representing a baseline environment that, because of a scarcity of materials and energy, can only support a small population on the edge of extinction. Initially, the small green dot denotes a single instant seed that appears spontaneously and then starts the heritable reproduction process. Mutants appear in nearby positions and the population grows rapidly towards the maximum size that the habitat can support. Because the landscape is flat, all individuals are born equal in fitness, and therefore death is a matter of random chance, and there is no natural selection. This results in random genetic drift, in which, from our perspective, the population appears to explore the landscape in all directions. That, of course, is potentially dangerous anthropomorphism. The population has no such intent. Indeed, it has no capability of having intent. Note that none of the exploring scouts are able to cross the red line and enter another habitat. That represents a physical restraint. For example, an inability to survive out of Darwin's Some Warm Little Pond. Now let's start again with another scenario in which we have added a terrain-modifying pyramid. The surface of this pyramid represents the availability in the habitat of fitness-enhancing resources denoted by the height of the surface above the XY plane. Consequently, any individual whose XY coordinates fall within the base of the pyramid will be endowed with the corresponding increase in fitness, thereby enhancing its probability of survival and reproduction relative to the less fortunate members of the population. Such an event has just occurred, and we have paused the model because what happens next is of fundamental importance and therefore requires careful consideration. I'll now let the model run on, and then we can do a few action replays. So, it seems that our model population can climb mountains, and it can do so quite quickly. At this point, it's important to remember that individual members of the population are not doing any mountaineering here. What we're seeing is successive mutant generations appearing further up the slope of the pyramid than their ancestors, thereby giving the impression that something is climbing the mountain. Consequently, it's important to underline the principle that individuals do not evolve, only populations do that. Another very important principle is now in evidence here. When the fitness landscape is flat, the population evolves by means of random genetic drift, until members begin to accrue the fitness advantage endowed by the pyramid. When that happens, the population evolves rapidly towards the peak under the action of natural selection, which discriminates against the less fit individuals. We can therefore conclude that evolution by means of natural selection is not an undirected process. Natural selection directs the evolution of a reproducing population towards local peaks in the fitness landscape in which reproducers are reproduced. In part 3, we will consider the implications of what happens up there on the top of the pyramid. We will do this in terms of how the population has been adapted to the fitness landscape, how information has been added to the population's gene pool, and perhaps the surprising result that natural selection acts to purify rather than degrade.